got a
This
lot going on
conference
this
will now
morning,
be recorded.
and
Don't trip on the cord.
all right.
Repeat that, please.
I said I understand you have some stuff going on this morning. You're going to be on the phone, and then you may join us with the meeting later. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. All right. It's 9:01, so I'm going to go ahead and start the meeting. As of now, you just heard it's being recorded at this time, and I think Dick Green did a great job getting that video that we did last time converted over to a YouTube file that made it real easy for people to view the meeting, that if they couldn't attend it at a later time, they can look at it on their phone or iPad, tablet, whatever. So that's really good that he was able to do that. I know he had to spend a little bit of time to make that happen. So and that was one thing, we got to have feedback out on that. If people don't use that, then we're not going to have Dick waste his time on it. So the more people that use it, the better, and the more likelihood we will continue to get him to convert that file for us. That's just an added benefit that we can get by having Dick Green as the IT committee chair. Joe is our moderator today, and he had a couple of admin notes he wanted to put out for everybody to help their experience with this be even better. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, just I'll do the first one now, and then the second one when you do your presentation, Eugene. Just in case you're unfamiliar, everybody, when you coming into the meeting, make sure to put both your first and last name so Barb can do an accurate attendance. And then, if you look toward the top of your screen, there's a button that gives you a choice of 4 different views. You can view everybody, and they're about the size of a small postage stamp. You can look at just who's talking, and then your screen will change whoever's got their mic open. You can use active cameras. That's the one I suggest, because that should show all the board members, because only the board members and the officers should have their cameras on. And then you can hide everybody if you want. But anyway, so make sure you're picking the view that works best for you. Okay, I'll save the other one till you start your presentation, Eugene.
Okay, thank you, Joe. All right.
Joe, this is Liz. I'm not seeing 4 buttons that you're speaking of.
Well,
I can see the count of the people. I can see something that looks like, I don't know, a car, or I don't know what it is.
well,
And
it depends on what, are you using Windows or something else?
I'm on my phone on GoToMeeting.
Oh, different.
Well, probably it's not on your phone, or you'd have to dig and find it someplace.
Okay, alrighty. I just wondered because I wasn't seeing it. That's fine.
Okay.
I think on the phone you're going to have limited options.
Okay, fine.
Okay, the first, we're going to review the 3 different topics that I've sent out for this special meeting that I called, and that is the charter and the purpose for which our HOA is organized. That'll be the first topic we're going to talk about. And then I'm going to do a handoff to Gail, who will go over the profit and loss budget versus actual. And then he will also talk about the approved budget that we have that begins on the 1st of April. Okay, and so I'll go ahead and share my screen now and start my presentation.
Okay, I'm going to cut in here for a second, Eugene.
Go ahead.
And if you folks, you'll see Eugene's presentation there. If you scroll your mouse over the presentation, to the right of it, you'll see plus and minus buttons. So you can enlarge or smallificate Eugene's presentation, depending on what works on your screen. I usually like to make it bigger because I really want to read what he's got there. But you're only going to see those buttons if you roll your scroll your mouse over the presentation. If you have your mouse someplace else, those buttons disappear. So that can help you see what he's presenting. Back at you, Eugene.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Okay, this is our mission statement. If everybody can see that, then I know we're presenting. If someone would say, yep, I see it.
We see it.
You see it?
Yes, we can see it.
All right. So nothing's changed from the last time we looked at this. I just want to throw this up there. It kind of gives us a focus on why we're here. Now, here, I want to cover today some things that you may already know, or you may not know, or you may rethink about some things that you thought were true and may want to go back and relook at some things. And these are just 3 of the things that I'm gonna cover today, and we're gonna analyze this a little bit and look at what our charter says that have to do with these statements. Now, for you people that are using a phone to dial in, can you see that presentation on your phone?
Yes. Yes.
You can? Okay, thank you, Liz. All right, wasn't sure. All right, this is pretty much what I had in the last slideshow we talked about. I want to cover this again. The ranking order of rules. I've added the title number, which gives the power to the homeowners association from the state legislature. And then, of course, the corporate charter. This is kind of the ranking of the way it goes. State first, corporate charter, then our bylaws, and the rules of order. We've talked about that before, that it's in our bylaws that we're going to follow Robert's Rules of Order. And then there's administrative details which come out in our policies. Now, one thing I want to point out here is what you don't see. And what you don't see here are DCRs. And the reason you don't see DCRs here in the ranking order of rules is because the DCRs are tied to the land. And DCRs don't dictate how an HOA runs an organization. This is Robert's Rules of Order that we're following. The one on the left of your screen is a newer one, the 12th edition, came out in 2020. The one on the right is a little easier to read, and most of what's in there is still valid. So I want to talk first about the object of the society. The charter talks about the object of the society. Well, what is that? And it's when you start reading legal language, sometimes you have to question, okay, what exactly are they talking about there? And it's defined as a purpose, goal, and scope of the organization's activities. So it's basically the purpose, why we're here. Now, in our charter, in the first paragraph, it lays it out in a pretty clear statement that this is what we are designed to do as an HOA. Now, there's about 9 paragraphs, subparagraphs rather, that fall under paragraph 13 of our charter. And so I want to bring that to everybody's attention once more, that this is our current charter, and that we're working off of, that was recorded at the courthouse in 2000. And it defines one of our purposes right here. So another purpose in subparagraph 3 is defined here as one of our purposes of our organization.
I feel like
Now,
he's lecturing.
to give
Lecture.
effect is a legal term for taking action. So we can take action as an HOA to any valid condition, covenants, and restrictions of record. So what this says is we have the authority and the power as an organization to enforce DCRs
Who's got a purpose?
as laid out in the DCRs.
We haven't figured it out.
Here's another paragraph, subparagraph for what our purpose is. And that's to make contracts.
Somebody needs to turn their microphones off.
Yeah, I can't see who might have their microphone on, but that is a great note. It is distracting when we have somebody with their microphone on and we hear some background noise. And so if you would, please figure out how to mute yourself. Thank you. So to make contracts, that's another purpose of our organization, and incur liabilities as necessary. And all the focus of that has to be for the purposes of what this organization was designed to do, which is provided in the preceding paragraphs to this one. So in paragraph 6, it talks about one of our purposes of our organization. And it's clear here that we have the authority and should, if needed, enter into a partnership or an agreement or an arrangement with another business for the purposes provided in the preceding paragraphs of this section. So again, just another piece of our purposes. Here's paragraph 8, subparagraph 8. Kind of lays it out that the purpose for which your organization is organized is to do whatever the board, officers, and directors feel is necessary to its objects. Again, that word objects, you could just pretty much change that for clarity and say objective. And note that in this paragraph, it gives the authority and power to the board of directors to most effectively operate to further the mutual benefit of the members as provided in the preceding paragraph. Now, our charter is a very important document, and it talks about it here in Robert's Rules, and it's defined here that the corporate charter supersedes all other rules, none of which can legally contain anything in conflict with the charter. And then we go back and look at, okay, does this paragraph, is there anything in other rules that we have that may conflict with this paragraph? If you notice here, this is a plat map of phase 1. Now, phase 1 was one of the first phases that are actually recorded and that the developer is working on, and as a phase. And you notice down there where I highlighted the word common area. And that common area it's got boundaries on it where it goes out to the road and it's all around these properties, all the way around. It comes all the way up to, it touches up here at Gardens View Drive. So all that is common area. So anybody that wants to in this neighborhood may use that area. They can walk their dog in that area. They can go have a picnic on There's, I think, a bench over there where you can sit out there and look at the lake or the pond rather. So all that's common area. And it's designated right there on the plat map. Now, there was an amendment to our bylaws, the first one. It was done in 1998. This is the first document that I have found that changed in its description of where it talks about common area from designated to owned. That's a big change. And this is the first place that it shows up. And so this was in 1998, and that's in our bylaws. You'll also see this term used in our DCR. And then you go back and you look at, well, what does our charter say? The charter does not say owned. The charter, nowhere on that document does it say anything about owning. It says designated. Well, what's the definition of designated? Is it common area written on a plat map? Like that? Then you go back and inside the bylaws, that first amendment in 1998 that changed the description of common area to owned, it says in the last article, and in the case of conflict between the articles of incorporation, which is our charter, and these bylaws, the articles shall control. And in the case of any conflict between the declaration and these bylaws, the declaration shall control. The key difference between bylaws and DCR. This is important to understand. So if you go back and look at some of the things that are in the DCRs, and some of the things that are in the bylaws, and some of the things that are in our policies, they may not be in the proper place or document, and they may not be valid. The purpose of the DCR is stated here. If you go back and look at the DCR, and as I said before, it's tied to your land. So, and that's why it has to be recorded with your deed. On your deed, it will point to the DCR. And on your deed, when it points to that DCR, you have to go look at the DCR, and it tells you what you can and cannot do with your property. It tells you what some of the benefits you get from owning that piece of land, such as the use of common areas. Another good example is, in Tansy, many people may know this, it's common practice for people to purchase a unbuildable small lot in Tansy so that they have the rights as a resident to use some of their common areas like fishing areas, pools, different things like that. That is coming from the DCR that's attached to their deed. There's also restrictions in there. Architectural design restrictions. This is probably where fence restrictions should be, because a fence is tied to your land. DCRs run with the land. That means when you sell a property here in the gardens, that DCR transfers with the deed. So everybody has to understand when they buy that piece of property that there are certain restrictions on it. And here gives some examples of some restrictions you should find in the DCR. Here's key takeaway, difference between DCRs and bylaws. They're interconnected, but they're different. So you see here, the bylaws describe how the HOA manages the standards that are defined in the DCRs. The DCRs don't tell the HOA what to do. All three of these documents are legally binding. And a violation of any of them can lead to fines, legal action, and in some cases, foreclosure. And if you have, and I know this from recent experience that I was involved with, that here in this county, if you have a lien placed on your property because you did not pay a fine that was given to you for a violation of one of these laws or rules, then the next step is you get a judgment at courthouse. You go to court and you get a judgment against the homeowner who failed to pay the fine. And then after you get that judgment, then if the fine is still not paid and cleared up, then you take it to the next step further. In some cases, a judge will say that sell the property. And that happens in our county. So that's nothing to mess around with. And we hope that we never have to go to that point. So getting back to my original thought, and I'm going to end with this slide. And I think we all need to go back and really look at our bylaws and our declaration, covenants, and restrictions and see if maybe there's some things that we need to adjust within those documents so that they're all in concert and in line with each other based on the legal hierarchy of the law and rules. So I want to leave you with more questions than answers that I provided today, but I wanted to bring that out and share that because this is something that I've studied for many years and been trying to get my head around, and it's just recently become a little clearer. And I think that's probably the same for a lot of folks. Something to consider. Okay, with that, I'm going to end my portion of my my time here and open it up for any questions from the board members on anything that I've covered up to this point. If there's no questions, then I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Gail to cover topic number 2.
Gail, I've made you presenter. And while Gail's getting it set up, this is Joe speaking. In addition to the buttons I told you before, um, at those four choices of the views toward the top of your screen, if you choose hide everyone, that will give you the largest possible size of Gail's presentation. So if you really want to see it in detail, particularly with him with the numbers, that might be a good choice. So of the four choices, if now you pick hide everyone, Gail's presentation will be as large as it can be. Go ahead, Gail. Gail, are you there?
It appears that his microphone is muted.
It does not show muted. Now it's unmuted.
This is Liz. The image I'm seeing of Gail is with headphones, and it's got his name, and it does show a red muted. It's got an X, crossed out microphone. That I don't know what that means, but to me that's muted.
No, he's not a mute. It shows him not muted. And he's talking. It's just not working.
Go that way.
There you go, Gail.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I had the headset on and it was working. I'll turn my mic up a little bit. Is that better?
Yes, it is.
Here we go.
Yeah, and sometimes, Gail, on your headset, there is a button which turns the mic on and off. You may have inadvertently hit that.
Yeah, well, we'll leave that aside for right now. Okay, what I want to start with is that what I am presenting now, which is the different pages of the Treasurer's monthly report, I want to show you that it is online. I upload it every month to the website. It is right here in the documents library. And you click on documents. And then you see the folders here on the left side. You got to scroll this all the way down to Treasurer's reports. And if the latest one isn't on top, these little arrows right here change the direction. And now I find it on the bottom, which is January, the last January report. I like to have them on the top, so I do it that way. Then just double click it. Whoops. Wrong. Let's go back again. Got to view it. All right. There's 4 sections to the Treasurer's report. These are the sections are the same each month. And what I start out with is just a report summary. And it just shows in the first paragraph the expenditures for that month. And then if we're paying anything other than utility bills and committee budgeted reimbursements, I show who received payments. In the last month, we had an additional insurance payment to add insurance coverage to our property liability policy. And Buzz also had to have the clubhouse fire extinguishers inspected. In this case, they found all three were bad, but they're still under warranty, so they replaced them. Then I show the month that we finished, and that's balances, okay, and our checking account and the balance in our savings account. And then I say, you know, everybody's worried about the budget. Are we exceeding or still under budget? So I sort of show that we've got almost all of our budgeted income. We've got the month of March yet, and some people are on monthly payments. And we've spent this percentage of our budgeted expenses. And I don't know why, but I got just some information about our lot counts. I keep this up just so everybody understands. And the 5 under construction, I list what they are, who the owners are. Okay, that's the summary. Now we get into the beginning of the meat of the report. And you see this is for January 2025. And the first part is our cash flow. Okay, in other words, the account balance. We had deposits. Our account balance was $725.18. We had deposit. In other words, people paid assessments for the month of January, so we deposit that amount. So our working cash amount for the month is that. And then we come down to expenses. All these things you see with EFT, I mean electronic fund transfer, I have set up that our payments for waste disposal, natural gas, water, electric, and the clubhouse cable are all taken out of our account through ACH. That way I don't have to make out checks to those people every month. And here's where we spent with our Whitehead Insurance Group to add the earthquake coverage. And now it shows the actual cost of that was $102. That's for the whole year. Life safety inspections, they came, but they come from Oak Ridge, and they have a travel fee that they add in here. Anyway, the total cost of that was $96. And then Jim Sparks had to buy some light bulbs for all of the lights in all of our common area, all the lots rather, and some common area. So our total expenditure for the month was that amount, which comes down here. You'll see we have dwellings and lots, and the reason I leave that on the report is that although we don't do lawn service anymore, stuff, and that's where that used to show up, I still keep it there because there are things in the DCR. For example, one of the things that can be done is if your home needs washing, say the outside walls have mold on them or, other kind of bad substances. And we send a letter to the owner to take care of that. And if they don't do it within 30 days, the DCR says the HOA can go ahead and clean that exterior and then charge the homeowners for it. So I leave that on there just in case. That's been blank for a long time. So we come down with our total expenses, and then we end up with an account balance. This amount is this amount subtracted from this amount. And then we go into the savings account, which is our balance, and then we had an interest deposit that month. So our account balance savings went up almost $100. Good. So we get a show with a total balance. In other words, money's in the checking and savings account on the last day of January. Was that total? Now down here I show some interesting information if you understand what this really means. We have a financial reserve, and we contribute to that in the budget every year. With payments this past year, this past summer. Okay, let me get it straight here. Past summer, for the pond restoration that we undertook, reduced our reserve balance somewhat. So that's money that stays in, has to be obligated. I call it obligated in the savings account. Then minus that, with this amount minus that amount, this is the actual money that is available for the operating budget. Okay. And what I do is I transfer money from the savings account into the checking account as necessary, depending on the payments that we have to do within a month. And it's sort of automatic. I know when I have to say transfer $6,000 or maybe only $3,000 in a month. It depends again on the payments for that month. So altogether then we have this amount of money. This projected income for the rest of the year, there's only 1 month left, and this is basically the amount of money that will be paid in March. Well, actually in February. This will be February. Anyway, it goes on, and then this is the money that is projected, or to be. What is this? This is this amount plus this amount. So this is a projected amount based on that. And then I use the profit and loss, and I'll show you that in a little bit. I use the profit and loss to come up with this amount, which is, and I'll show you that exact amount, the remaining budgeted expenditures for this fiscal year. Now, we had a budget that the board approved with a shortfall of almost $25,000. But even with that, we are still projecting retained earnings for this fiscal year in this amount. Now, that's just projected. Whether that turns out, don't know. So that's that part of the treasurer's report. Now we get into the actual profit and loss budget. And remember that figure I showed you? Right there. Total expenses. And as I explain the columns, you'll see where that figure came from. Okay, this first column is the actual budget amount for this fiscal year. That was approved budget by the board for this fiscal year. So you go down this column, and while you're in that, there's some indentations for totals and things, but that first column is the budget. Okay. Actually, it's what we, excuse me, let me restate that. This is the expenditure, or the amount that's available if it's income versus expense. This is a monthly expense. Okay. Well, not monthly, for the year. This is what we've spent against the budget. This is the budget. I got mixed up. This column is the budget. This is what has been spent thus far, okay, in this fiscal year. So we have expenditures, and we have what the budget was, or is for this fiscal year. And over here we got dollar over budget. Now, I always kid myself. I said, this is the only place I want to see negative numbers. Okay? Because a minus sign, especially in the expense, means we still have that much available for this fiscal year. So you see, this was utility. This is clubhouse electric. We budgeted this amount. We've spent this amount, which leaves this amount left over. And this just gives a percentage of the budget. Okay. So we've spent 65.3% of the budget. I don't pay too much attention to this last column. I'm really, what I track is these columns. All right. So this is the second page. It goes on. So here's that 84,000 that I had in the balance sheet. And that is of total expenses. This is what we've spent total so far this year. This is budget. And so that figure is this figure minus this figure minus this figure is that, and we still have 41.3% of our budget. We spent that. Here's the shortfall where I shows in the budget. Okay, the last one is the actual balance sheet. The only thing I'm really concerned about is this figure, because when I do this, let me get back to this. When I do this sheet, this figure right here better come out for the same amount on the balance sheet, which says this is our checking account balance for the month. remember I said that the financial reserve cash amount is kept in the savings account. But I treat it as obligated. We don't touch that except to pay for something that is paid with the financial reserve. So all these balances just adding addition. At the time I made this report, I had some undeposited funds that since I deposited yesterday, finally checks came in. Now, this sheet shows some balances of fixed assets. And what I've done is, to show this is just that the land that we own around the apartments, East Pond, North Pond, West Pond, this is the appraised value of those properties. So that's a fixed asset. So the total land we have is this amount. And again, that's at the appraised value. So we have fixed assets, we have land, we also have structures. One of them is the apartment carport. Believe it or not, we own that. And the clubhouse, we have the building, furnishings, improvements. So that these just total up. Okay. So total fixed assets in that amount. Liabilities, this is where the financial reserve liability shows up. That's the balance that we have right now in the financial reserve. And equity, retained earnings over the years. All right. That's it. That's the treasurer's report. Now, what I want to go back to, let's see. I'm going to go back to this one. In expenses, as part of the budget, we budget every year to increase or to set aside amount projected for that year, which is this fiscal year. At the end of the year, on March 31st, I will move that amount into the financial reserve balance. Okay? So every year we know ahead of time from an analysis done by the Financial Reserve Planning Board, planning people, we know by year what we have to put back into the financial reserve to keep it or try to keep it solvent. Okay. Anybody have any questions? Hello.
Nothing from me.
Okay. I give the sharing back.
Okay, Gail, you're going to go ahead and go into the next topic, which is the budget that's approved and goes into effect on 1 April.
Oh, yes. Okay. I got to share. Share me again. present.
Okay, I'll make you share. I took you off.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Okay, I put you back on.
Good. Okay, what we'll do, we'll get out of this, and again, online are the HOA fiscal year budgets. Okay. So here is the approved budget for next fiscal year, starting in April 1st. Okay. And this is still an Excel file because the other files are QuickBooks files where I have transferred the budget into QuickBooks. But I can't do that until April 1st. So what you see here is the Excel version of this. This budget, April 1, 25 to March 31, 26, was approved by the board on that date. The very first thing you're going to see is the improved lots. This is income now. The improved lots, we have an income of that. That's 205 lots you'll see the new assessment for the year, $518. Okay. The board did approve, in accordance with the DCR, they can approve up to 5% above last year's, which this year was 494. So on income, these two are just estimates based on the lots the developer owns versus projected of what he might sell for the next year. So then we have total asset income. We have some miscellaneous. Everybody that sells a lot in the development, a title company or a bank, whatever financial institution you're using for that sale, they come to me for an assessment certification. It's a document that they require. Actually, the state of Tennessee requires, because we are a homeowners association. They are charged $25 for each assessment certification. And then we have interest from our savings account. And again, these two are just estimates based on previous experience, okay? So our total income next year, projected, okay? And then we go into our expenses. Now, if you take this document and put it beside the document I just showed you about the profit and loss, this is where that comes in, okay? Maintenance, these figures mostly are based on committee chairperson, committee reports. When I do a budget call, usually by September, before the next fiscal year. When we did not have the opportunity to do what we're doing today, and that is for a virtual meeting, it was I had to have the budget approved by October, because starting in November we didn't have board meetings. Everybody started leaving for the winter, so board meetings are basically, well, used to be 9 months of the year, okay? Now with the GoToMeeting and the ability to virtually have meetings, that's sort of has gone by the wayside, and so it's not that important any longer to get that information by October. But we did it this year again, okay. So you see, this is, now we're into expenses, common area, and HOA operations, okay. This is what, this level here, all the way down, okay, is what I call a, the name just out of my head. Category, okay? This is a category of expense, the clubhouse. So you see all of the various things that do that, and then you see total clubhouse. So this amount here is the sum of all these as the total. So when you get into this common area maintenance, now we have another, excuse me, common area maintenance is a category again. So we have, the different types of maintenance that we have to do. We get into leaf removal, mowing of common areas, everything. And so here again, you see this total. And then we get into insurance. So total for the category. These in here, okay, when I get from the category, then we get into the line items, okay? This is line item of expense. And that's how much we budgeted for the year. Okay, so that goes on. Here's that financial reserve planned increase. And you'll notice that if you go back to this current year's fiscal year, it was like what, 35, 36,000. So it increases next year. So that'll be the amount that we put in, that the treasurer will put in that on March 31st, 2026. Then we have another sort of a subcategory in office. That's mainly, I'll tell you, that's mainly Barb and myself, where we have to deal with these line items, okay? You see all those. Again, total. This is actually a subcategory. Then a social committee has a budget. And then, of course, we do have to pay taxes. And right now, we own 4 common areas, plus those structures I showed you. And so we project our property tax and license. This mainly covers every year. By July, I have to submit an HOA, a report to the state of Tennessee. And that report says, we're still here, and here's our board of directors, here's our officers, and that type of thing. So that's it. Now, again, this year, the board approved the budget with a shortfall. Okay. Now, don't get too excited about a shortfall, because there's a report that if anybody's interested, I can give them that for every year that we've been in existence, here's what we had budgeted and here's what we actually expended. And, you know, and that mainly shows that we have always had, um, we've always been under budget. And like I showed you, we'll probably be $30,000 to the good even this coming year, or this year rather, where we do still have a shortfall. So, one of the things I'd like to remind people is everybody, lots of people in the HOA look at a line item, okay, and they say, "Well, you had $1,500." But man, you spent $1,700. You you busted the budget. Well, not really. What the budget shows is that for this particular line item, yes, if it shows 1,700 over here in the P&L, yeah, that line item was breached. But then you go down to where I go and look at this number. What's the total expenses for that category? Okay. Clubhouse. And normally, I think this statement is pretty true. A particular line item can be exceeded, yet the total of that category is still within budget. That's what I look at. I don't get excited about being over budget until the category shows me that it's going to be over budget. All right? Any questions on the budget? I'll stop sharing it then.
Hey, Gail, I got a question.
Go.
Actually, more of a statement. You mentioned that we used to try to, that was our goal, was to get a approved budget by the board in October. And it may not necessarily be something that's critical anymore because we are able to meet during the winter months, even though our bylaws say that our last meeting for the calendar year, I think, is November.
Yeah.
I would like for us as a board to agree to continue to use October as a goal for getting an improved budget.
Yes.
And the reason for that is I know in past years we have had to amend the budget later on, I think as late as January, right before the new fiscal year started on April. It still gives us time to do that. The other thing is if we approve or we don't approve the budget within the calendar year, and then we decide as a board that it looks like we need to go to the residents for a vote to increase assessments more than 5%, which we would have to do, then that we got to have time to where we could do a vote
Right.
of the people. And
Right.
so by getting it approved by October, and that still gives us the winter months to get that vote out to the people and figure out what the outcome is and the impact is before that fiscal year actually starts.
Excellent. Yes.
Does anybody else have any questions for Gail? Okay. I don't see any hands raised. If there's no questions, then that was the last topic that I had on the order of business for the special meeting that I called for today. I do have an announcement, and I would like to go ahead and let it be known that we'll do one more special meeting called by the president before our next regular scheduled meeting, which is 11 March. So I would like to set the date of that. I've coordinated with the presenter, which is going to be Ken Wertenberger, and he's gonna talk to us about the Reserve Analysis Committee and what they do, what they've been asked to do, and the products that they create and how they go about it. That's going to be the focus for that meeting, and that will be held on the 28th of February, which is a Friday at 9 o'clock. And I may add another topic to that as well, which is conduct of the board meeting. And we will look at potentially Robert's Rules of Order for small boards and procedures for how we hold our regular scheduled meeting in a little more detail. And that should be it. Okay, if there's no further questions from the board members on anything covered today, then I'm going to open it up. Oh, Cass, go ahead. Cass, I saw you raise your hand. You disappeared. Did you have something, Cass?
Eugene,
Yes.
could we adjourn the meeting before we have Q&A?
Yes, we will. Thank you for reminding me, Barbara.
Right.
Eugene, this is Liz.
Okay.
I would like to have a meeting now. I don't know if it needs to be an open meeting or more of a board workshop, but to review the bylaws and possibly present some amendments there to them. And I think that should probably go before the March meeting. Am I correct?
No, I would say that should probably be done at the March meeting. And,
at the March meeting?
Yeah, and so what we'll do is we could put that on an order of business for March meeting. And then between now and then, if you would draft up, what your amendment is proposed and send that out to all the board members to take a look at. And then we could have some email traffic about it. And then we'll have discussion about it formally and officially at that first order of business that we do 11 March.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Any other? Yes, you're back.
Eugene?
You're
Yes.
muted, Cass. Cass, you're muted.
Okay.
There you
go. Right. I have a question. Eugene, you showed us our mission statement, and we used the word "we" a lot. We also talked about the power of the board. What I'm confused about and would like for you to explain to me is the process by which the president can override a committee chairman's activities and decisions and not include the board in making a decision that affects all of us. So what is the process? As we go forward, we're making decisions, we the board, not one person. You've overridden the chairman. How does that work?
Well, your point here, Cass, is not well taken because it was not listed as an order of business for today. The topics that I have scheduled are what we were talking about in this special meeting. Now, if
Right.
you would like to have a special meeting to discuss something else, then there is a process for doing that. But this is not the time and place for that.
Well, you were talking, excuse me, you were
If
talking,
you do have some issues with anything that I have done thus far, you can bring that up in the order of business on 11 March. And so with that, we're going to close this meeting and we're going to open it up to the residents for any questions they might have on the 3 topics that I've discussed today. Okay, Barbara, you can close the meeting.
Okay.
Are there any questions from anybody out there? I saw we had like 46 at one point. I see Ken Wertenberger has his hand up. Ken, cut on your video and cut on your camera so we can see you, if you can. At least your microphone. I heard a duck.
Yeah.
There's Ken Wertenberger. Are you a duck? I can see you, Ken, but I do not hear you. It looks like you're muted on my end. Ken, can you type your question in to the comments box and then maybe we could do it that way. Otherwise, we're going to.
Down below.
No, can't do it. Okay. All right. Well, we'll do it another time. Maybe we can cover it on the 28th of February when we get together. I want to thank everybody for their time this morning and look forward to the next time that we meet. And I'm going to go ahead and sign off now. I didn't hear of anybody else having any questions for the group. All right. Thank you. Y'all have a good day.